Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training, we want to welcome you to the session on managing stress. We know that we have in our audience this evening principals, parents, students, and teachers of our class for students. We know that over the last 2 weeks, you have been engaging in some sessions which are designed to help you with the coming 11 plus exam, which I know you're all eagerly anticipating next Tuesday. And these sessions have been for your own development, as well as to ensure that you feel confident and competent as you go about doing your language arts and your mathematics next week, Tuesday. But we know that this time of the 11 plus is a time of great stress. It's a time of great anxiety. Not that we want it to be so, but we know that traditionally many parents and their children look forward to the expectations of the exam and doing very well. And we really wish you all the best. We want all of you to be relaxed and to just put your best effort in and to do well next week. Whatever the outcome, we are all very proud of you at the Ministry of Education. This evening, we have a special psychologist to speak to us on managing stress. And I will introduce her in a few minutes. But before she comes, I want to introduce our Chief Education Officer, Dr. Ramona Archer Bradshaw, and she is going to share some brief comments with you. Dr. Bradshaw.
Thank you very much, Dr. Charles. Good evening, boys and girls. It is our pleasure at the Ministry of Education to facilitate this session this evening on managing stress. We thought that it would be a good idea to have this session prior to the 11 plus exam so that you can learn some helpful strategies to cope with any pressures that you may be feeling at this time. Know that the Ministry of Education has been working extremely hard to make this process a smooth one for you. Prior to the start of the academic year, we revised each syllabus so that topics that were extremely relevant for your year group were retained, and those topics or areas that could be incorporated at the secondary level were removed. We also ensured that many of you received devices when we learned that you did not have them. We assisted some of your parents with the help of the Barbados Latent Power when they did not have electricity, and implemented ways for you to access the internet with the help of the Community Development Department if you did not have internet at home. We also provided support for you and or your parents and guardians through our social work programs, the wonderful activities facilitated by our primary school counselors, and the workshops held by our school attendance officers. The Ministry of Education also wishes to highlight the work of the principals and teachers in preparing you for the 11 plus examination. During our regular meetings with the principals, they shared with us their ideas to assist you, and we shared with them further strategies to ensure that you learn. Your teachers also went beyond the call of duty to make learning meaningful and enjoyable. Over the past 2 weeks, the ministry offered a remediation program for vulnerable students. Preliminary findings reveal that this program was a success, with over 100 students accessing the face-to-face sessions after class and taking advantage of the homework assistance. To further aid our students, the ministry extended the preparation time for the 11 plus examination. The examination is usually scheduled in May. However, given the challenges experienced by many of you with the COVID-19 pandemic, the ministry made the decision to give you an additional 6 weeks to prepare for the examination and to ensure that you learn basic concepts for a transition to secondary school. Students, the secondary school that you attend does not matter. It does not matter. It is what you do when you get there. At the university, I sat with students from Harrison College, Queens College, Ellerslie Secondary, St. Lucie Secondary, which is now Darrell Jordan, St. James Secondary, which is now the Frederick Smith School. So it doesn't matter where you go. It is what you do when you get there. Parents, I encourage you to continue to give the love and support that is necessary for our children to cope as they seek to develop into model citizens. Overall, I commend you for your efforts, and I wish you success as your children move on to the next level in their educational journey. I encourage you also to continue to guide the children, guide your children, guide our children, because we at the Ministry of Education will continue to do our part. Children, success to you next week as you write your examinations. The Ministry of Education wishes you all the very best.
Thank you, Chief, for those very warm and encouraging words. And I want to emphasize that this afternoon we have a small group in our Zoom session. So we have some of you here via Zoom, and we have an even larger audience joining us via YouTube. So welcome to all of you, whether you are in our Zoom session or whether you are joining us via YouTube. So at this time, I'm going to introduce to you our speaker for the evening. She's going to be sharing on managing stress. She's going to be presenting for approximately 45 minutes. And after her session has ended, we're going to open for a few questions. Noemi White is a Hungarian Swiss who grew up in France, Austria, South Korea, and Switzerland before moving to Barbados in 2000. She completed her bachelor's and master's degrees in psychology, and for a couple of years worked as a counselor with women and children affected by domestic violence. Since 2009, Noemi has been working at the Sunshine Early Stimulation Center with families of children with special needs aged 2 to 11 years. For these last 13 years, Noemi has specialized in early child development from a mental health perspective, though she continues to thoroughly enjoy the facilitation of workshops for mental health professionals, teachers, parents, and family members in all areas of child rearing, self-care, and psychosocial support. Noemi is an active member of the Barbados Society of Psychology and assistant faculty member of the Profectum Foundation, New Jersey. Noemi has been with her husband for a happy 25 years and has 2 grown daughters. So at this time, I present to you Noemi White, psychologist, to present to us on managing stress. Noemi?
Good evening. Thank you so much for this lovely introduction, Dr. Charles. Thank you, of course, Dr. Archer Bradshaw, and to the ministry for having me here. I also welcome the members of the media. I welcome all the principals, teachers, parents. And when I say parents, I mean all the caregivers and guardians who have been involved with the children, and of course the students, whether you're here with us in the live session or watching this on YouTube, or perhaps accessing this recording at a later time. It is wonderful to be here. And today we are going to look at a few strategies on how we can manage stress. And I hope you can all see my screen. I have labeled it today, "Don't let stress stress you out." And I think we are all very familiar with stress, whether we are young or not so young. And we are moving on here with the slide. So it's me. Okay, just a very brief overview. We are going to just look at what might be experiences that are more common during exam times, before or during the exam. We're going to think about what stress is, or learn about what stress is. We're going to think about control. And then I'm going to introduce some strategies for stress relief. We're not going to be able to use each strategy to its fullest as a practical session, but my hopes are that you can gather those that may stand out to you and remember them to use both during the time leading up to the 11+ exam, as well as during the exam. And if you find that this is a lot of information all today, then do use the same YouTube link that is available so that you can look at it perhaps tomorrow or over the weekend and go through maybe one or two of those strategies that you found to be particularly interesting or particularly helpful for yourselves. And then we're going to have the opportunity for some questions or discussions. So I'm just going to briefly touch on all the possible experiences that you may experience before or during an exam. And this is true for the students who you are now preparing for the exam or have prepared diligently for the exam, as well as for parents, teachers, and caregivers. So there are different areas of experiences that you may find that affect you. For example, you may have physical signs of stress. Headache, you may feel a little nervous or sick. You may even feel like you have to run to the restroom. You might find yourself sweating more profusely, have a quicker heartbeat, shortness of breath can be part of it. Even sometimes when you feel stressed, you might feel lightheaded or faint. You might find that your mouth runs dry, or even that your body temperature changes. These are all signs of some level of stress or even exam anxiety. But you might also have emotional experiences. You might find that over the time preparing that you have experienced fear of what could happen, what if, or anxiety, which is a bit more subtle, that nagging feeling of worry and concern. Disappointment, perhaps, in how it's been going so far, or anger at how difficult all of this is and not having time for fun stuff, frustration, but of course, worry. You might even feel signs of depression, helplessness. You might find yourself excessively laughing and crying, or a sense of numbness, a kind of detachment or disconnect. You might even find that by now you just feel burnt out, which is this mental fatigue that might be very real, even a sense of disbelief. I can't believe this is what's happening now. Or of course, a sense of emotional confusion with all of the above. Now, when you're nervous or stressed or preparing for an exam or in the exam, you might find yourself noticing certain behaviors such as excessive fidgeting, or even you might find that you want to get up and pace through the room. You might even avoid. Any of you have tried to avoid some of that work that's just been on your mind and you know you're supposed to be doing it and you've been quarreled with for not doing it and you're just still avoiding it? Well, that's still quite a normal part of that stress. To some extent, even substance use has been shown or has been in existence with regards to pre-exam or exam stressors, of course, not recommended. But also you might find yourself having some cognitive experiences, such as your thoughts are just racing all over the place. Or alternatively, you just go blank. You know the answer, but it's just not there. You might find it difficult to concentrate. All of a sudden, everything else is just distracting you. Or you catch yourself doing negative self-talk, such as, saying like, oh gosh, I just don't know it, I'm so stupid. You might also have that sense of dread, worry and concern, again, on a more cognitive level, and comparing yourself excessively to others, or even finding it difficult to organizing your thoughts. And there might even be a sense of regret. I'm going to move this little window here, my apologies. A sense of regret of what I should have done and how I should have started earlier or prepared myself better, if only if all the shoulds. So perhaps you've recognized some of these for yourselves or for your child or even in your parent, or you may have recognized many of them. But let me tell you that if you're experiencing some of these or many of these, you're having a whole set of confusing emotions, well, congratulations, because you are human. So what I'm saying with this is that having these feelings and these emotions is quite normal. What matters is what are we going to do about them? So I'd like to briefly look at stress. We talk about stress all the time. Oh, I'm stressed. Oh, she's so stressed out. Oh, this is stressful. But what is it really? Now, in its natural origin, stress is actually quite a healthy response. Let's think of circumstances where even years and eons ago, in our survival of the human race, we needed to deal with dangers in nature. Let's imagine we're walking through the savannah and here comes a big, strong, roaring lion. Of course, our response is going to be fear or panic. What's happening then is that our brain is releasing a hormone or several hormones. One of them is cortisol, one of them is adrenaline, but whatever they're called, they're really brain chemicals that are also known as stress hormones. Now, they have an important function. What they do is they prepare our body for the next reaction, either fight or flight. So what do these hormones do? They start to increase our breathing rate. They start to increase our heart rate. And with that, we pump more oxygen to our muscles and to our brain, for the brain to be able to make split-second decisions about what's important for survival, and for our muscles to get into action, whether we need to fight or run away as fast as we can. By the way, with a roaring lion, I would choose the second. However, after we got away safely from the lion, or maybe we were able to catch it with some sort of big net or hunter's weapons, there comes a time of relief and relaxation where we can now stretch out and relax and calm down. And what's happening in the brain is that there's another hormone that balances out the stress hormones. It's called oxytocin. Some know it as the love hormone. It reduces our breathing. It reduces our heart rate. It also increases, again, some of those other functions that were decreased earlier. So one of the things I omitted to say, for example, is the stress hormones also reduce our digestive system or our reproductive system because they're not important for immediate fight or flight. But when we relax and we calm down, all of that comes back into balance. Do you see how important actually these stress responses really are for our survival? But what happens when there is chronic stress, or when stress keeps happening for too long, too often, too much? So let's imagine we are in the state of pressure, anxiety, fear. Remember, our brain releases those stress hormones and we go into mode for fight or flight. Well, here I have also added fight, flight, or freeze, because some of our natural response can also be to just freeze. Now, if the stressor or the perceived or real threat or pressure or the thoughts that keep us there are extended and repeated, and we don't have the chance to relax or to de-stress, the same hormone keeps reproducing and reproducing and reproducing and reproducing. And what happens is that we maintain that level of stress and our body never manages to calm down. Guess what? Our breathing remains rapid. Our heart rate is a little faster. We continue to sweat more often. We find it harder to slow our thinking down. We sometimes find that our appetite is influenced, where we either eat too much or too little, or we might not be able to sleep properly because we can just not relax to that extent. Do you see how dangerous or unhealthy this can be over time? So the first thing I would like to invite everyone to do is to think about that differentiation of what I can control and what I cannot control. Because tell you what, there are so many things that we cannot control, and it's no point stressing over those. So when we think about the upcoming 11+ exam, you are not able to control how the questions will be worded, but you can control of how you can focus on some of those keywords that might give you some of the clues. You cannot control what questions come up or which sections come up that you may or may not have prepared. But what you can control is you can decide to do the best you can with what's in front of you. You cannot control if maybe Monday night, it's going to be a particularly hard night to sleep because the neighbor's dog was barking all night. But what you can control is you can calm your breathing and you can calm yourself to be most efficient in the moment. And we're going to do one or two of those exercises shortly. You cannot control what you should have done in the past. Oh, I should have started earlier. Oh, last year I should have done X, Y, Z. Oh, I should have told my student or my child to do this differently or better. No, you can no longer control that. But what you can control is what you do here and what you do now. You cannot control what other people say or do, but you can control with how you respond to what other people say or do. So now I'm going to invite you to take 2 sheets of paper. I don't want you to panic if you don't have paper at hand. You can do the exercises with me without paper. But if you find it helpful, if you rewatch this recording and you find it helpful to go and grab some paper or an exercise book, I'm going to give you some suggestions as to how you can prepare your own 2 worksheets. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do, if you happen to have something in front of you now, is to make 2 lines on the sheet so that each of your papers or worksheets has 4 sections. Okay? Just like you can see it here on my screen. And then you're taking the first sheet. And now this is not about being artistic. It doesn't matter really how it looks. But I'm just going to show you some basic shapes that you can put into each of these 8 squares. And they will help us with the exercises later. Once again, if you don't have it in front of you now, it's okay. You can just listen in and you can participate in the exercises nevertheless. So in the first square, you can do something like a thought bubble. In the second square, maybe just an oval shape. Or in my case, I made it into a balloon. That's up to you. In the third sheet, and don't forget, if you rewatch it, you can pause this if it's going too fast. You can also, if you don't get to finish all of these squares, you can do them or complete the shapes as we go through each exercise. In the third square, you can put something like a power bubble or power shape. And in the fourth square, just a simple rectangle. Okay, I hope you're still with me. On your second worksheet, again, it can just be a simple rectangle. It can represent something like a window. So if you want to put a curtain or you want to put window frames, that's up to you. In the third one, perhaps something like a rainbow. Now, my rainbow only has 3 bows or 3 colors that are not even filled in. That's fine. As you can see, it's really just to have a symbol. In the next shape, I'm going to invite you to do something like a picture frame or a mirror. And lastly, something like a flag. Okay? So we're going to start with the first exercise. I'm going to share 8 strategies, each relevant to one of these squares. So to the first shape, where it's about thoughts, that thought bubble, the first strategy is really simple, as they all are actually. Just acknowledge what you're thinking or feeling at the moment. So whether it is right now or during the exam, if you find yourself getting stressed, just pause for a brief few seconds and just acknowledge what you're thinking and feeling. Oh, I'm feeling nervous. Ooh, I'm feeling blank. Ah, I'm not sure if I can remember it. I wish I was somewhere else right now. The point is that you're just acknowledging how you're feeling and what you're thinking without judging it. So try not to berate yourself, but just be curious and just go like, oh, interesting. I'm feeling nervous. And that's all it is. What it does, it helps you come back to the moment and organize your thinking and your feelings into just one at a time. So if you have your thought bubble in front of you, you can maybe write down what this thought or feeling just now was. The next strategy is something we do all the time, but you may have heard this many times. Breathe, or just take a deep breath. I think we often forget how important proper breathing is. It can really calm us and de-stress us. For myself, I'm sure most of you have seen Nemo, or Finding Nemo, the movie, and you may remember his friend Dory, and she has this little song, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. So for myself, sometimes when I'm getting nervous or I realize, oh, I think I stopped breathing, I have this little melody in my mind. Just keep breathing, just keep breathing. What you can do as you sit in the chair during exam, and I'm inviting you to practice this beforehand, is called Superman pose belly breathing. Because what's important is that we want to reduce the chest breathing, which is very shallow and which comes with stress. And we want to calm it down and slow it down so that we can again do belly breathing. So I'm not sure if the camera is going to show this, but place your hands just below your rib cage, okay? Where's that soft part under your rib cage? Feel it? And as you just focus on your breathing, you can close your eyes or keep them open. See if that breathing can make that soft part of the belly move in and out. Just take a few deep breaths. If you find that it's not moving, try and make it move. Try and have those hands in that Superman pose move in and out as if it was a balloon. And that will bring your breathing out of your chest into your belly. And that's all it takes. Another breathing exercise that I encourage you to practice, you can do this every day. You can do this whenever you want. If you have just even a minute. It's called box breathing. And you breathe in, count of 4, hold, count of 4, breathe out, count of 4, hold, count of 4. And you are creating a box, okay? So let's try and do it together. In, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, my counting was a bit off the box, but let's try it again. I'm going to not count loud, but use my fingers, okay? So in, hold, out, hold. And again, and you can repeat it a number of times. You can do this very quietly for yourself, so you're not going to disturb anyone around you. You don't have to breathe loudly, but just calmly. You can count on your fingers carefully on the desk and just take about 2 to 3 box breaths. And you will find that your body and your brain, your mind, your emotions, that it calms down, okay? So if you found this helpful, or if you prefer one over the other, or if you notice right now how you're feeling differently after you've just done 1 or 2 of these breathing exercises, you can make a note of that into your balloon or into your oval shape, just a word of what came up. Now, the third strategy is about our body, about tense and relax our muscles. We also call it progressive muscle relaxation. And we can do it with our entire body or just with parts of our body. So for example, as you're sitting during the exam and you might find yourself stressing or before the exam. So a lot of us feel most stressed before the exam, and in the moment of the exam, we might actually feel calmer. But you can try this with me. Tense your toes and your feet. Tense them really, really, really hard as you can, and then relax. Great job. And now tense your fists. Tense them really, really hard. Squeeze as much as you can. Squeeze, 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 all 10 fingers. And relax. You can do it with your legs. So let me see about your thighs. Try and squeeze those thighs as you're sitting or standing perhaps. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze them as tight as you can and relax. How do these muscles feel now that you've done that? Do these particular muscles feel differently than any other part of your body that you haven't done this exercise yet? You might find that they feel a little warmer or a sense of tingling. This is an excellent de-stressor. It's also an excellent way, an excellent exercise to do before falling asleep if you're having challenges falling asleep. You can start at your toes and just move up your body, body part by body part, muscle by muscle, until all the way up. You can do it with your forehead, tense it with your eyes, and relax. And it's very, very beneficial to the relaxation. Sorry, before we go on, you can even just press your fingertips. Okay, those are easy things to do even during the exam while you're focused and you're reading this question again very carefully. Just squeeze those fingertips really, really hard and relax. Okay? And whatever sensation you felt as you did this in your muscle, whether it was warmth or tingling or relaxation or anything else, you can write that into this power bubble. And there is no right or wrong with these questions. Whatever it is that it felt like for you, that's your right answer. The next strategy is about engaging our senses. So we're obviously thinking about our 5 senses. So if you want to try this one before or during the exam, again, it just takes a few seconds. Now, I know you might think like, oh my gosh, I already don't have enough time for the exam itself, and now you're taking away more time for these exercises. During the exam, it's only necessary to apply these if you find yourself really getting to a level of anxiety that makes it hard to concentrate. And then these strategies will actually give you back more time because you will be more focused, more relaxed, and more concentrated after. But if today, tonight, tomorrow, over the weekend, you want to try some of these, they also help you in your preparation towards the exam. And this is true for all of us here, the parents, teachers, principals, anyone who is listening. So just think about, notice 3 things that you are seeing right now. For me, I am noticing a water bottle on my desk. I can see a ceiling fan, and I can see a window with not much to see behind it because it's getting dark. And it's just to pay attention for a quick moment. What do my eyes see right now? And then you can use your next sense. Think about 3 things, or just notice 3 things that you're hearing right now. It could be somebody's voice that is in your house, or it could be whistling frogs and crickets outside, or it could be the humming of a fridge or the humming of a fan. Just briefly put your attention to what you're hearing. Now, notice 3 things that you are currently touching. This can be your feet touching the rug, or socks if you're wearing socks. Maybe your hands are touching a desk, or they might be touching your lap, or they might be touching the tablet or the laptop. You might notice even that your neck is touching the collar of your shirt that you're wearing, or that your back is touching the backrest of your chair. And again, just notice. You might even notice things that you can touch if you were to reach out. So if I was to reach out, I can touch this water bottle. Perhaps there are even things that you can smell right now. Some food in the kitchen or a perfume. And it's just to bring your attention to those senses for a very brief moment. Notice what happens. Is that all of a sudden, as you focus on your senses, there is no room to have all of these other thoughts and worries at the same time. So you can make a note perhaps of what you saw, what you heard, what you touched, and just write it in this rectangle. So I'm hoping so far these first 4 strategies, one of them might have been more meaningful to you than others. Let's see if the next 4 might be appealing, at least one of them. So this strategy is probably best practiced beforehand. So if you can practice it over the next 3 days, you will find it easy to access during the exam or just before the exam, where you might be the most nervous or the most stressed out. So I went too fast. So I'm inviting you to think of some place that you've been before, where you just really enjoyed yourself, where you had a good time, where it was just beautiful. Perhaps it is even a place that you've thought of and haven't really been there. Perhaps it is a place that you've seen in a movie. But just imagine this place a few times a day or once a day over the next couple of days, and see if you can really make it vivid with all your senses. Think about this place right now. How does it look? Are there plants there? Are there buildings there? What colors can you see? How does it feel, the air? Is it warm? Is it cool? What's the weather like if you're outside? What's the furnishing like if you're in a room? Is there something you can hear and smell or even taste? Try and make it as vivid as possible and really feel those feelings, those memories perhaps, if they were real memories, or those feelings if it is part of your imagined happy place. The more detailed you can make it, the more easily you can access it later. So the trick and the strategy is that when you start to feel yourself stressing, you might now have to line up in front of the school where you're going to be writing the exam, and your thoughts are just racing, your palms are sweating, you're breathing, everybody's talking at you, it's overwhelming, you're not sure you're going to remember a single thing. Just for a moment, close your eyes and go back to your happy place. I use that a lot and it really works. So before we move on, make a little note for yourself in this window, something that is meaningful for your happy place. So perhaps if it was a beach, you can write beach, but it doesn't have to be so clear. It can just be a color. So speaking of colors, here we are to my next strategy. Colors can really be very powerful to how we feel and how we think. So I'm going to invite you to think about, if you are feeling stressed, or if you were feeling stressed, what might be one of these qualities that you really need most, that will help you most? So for example, it can be, I just need clarity, or I just need focus, or I just need support, or I just need calmness. And then I'm going to invite you to give it a color. So for me, if I'm thinking of concentration, right now I need some more focus and concentration. What color could that be? I think mine is yellow. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to just think of yellow. Imagine yellow. I can close my eyes. You can close your eyes with me and just think about yellow. It can be a yellow light, or it can even be yellow paint. I can imagine that I'm painting the world yellow. I can breathe in yellow. How about the air being yellow? And I can put that yellow inside of me, breathe it in, let it go into my mind, let it go into my fingertips, and let that be my color for what I need, concentration and focus. But again, no color is right or wrong. Whatever is your color that helps you in the moment, make it clear, make it big, think about it, feel it, breathe it in, let it run down, imagine it's liquid, whatever helps you. But focus on that color and you will find that it helps you de-stress. So you could perhaps write your color into the rainbow. Or if you even have crayons at hand, you can color it. My next strategy, we have 2 more strategies left, and then I might keep some of the last slides just for access for later, so that we still have time to ask some questions or give some comments. My 7th strategy is about self-kindness. Unfortunately, we forget that way too often. So we often might think, oh, I shouldn't feel stressed. I shouldn't feel scared. I shouldn't feel angry. But it's okay. Remember, they are human feelings. So just allow them to be without having to act them out. And then say like, oh, okay, let me also make some room for self-kindness. Treat yourself kindly, no matter who you are, big or small. Treat yourself kindly because you deserve it. What kind words could you say to yourself right now? Or what kind thing can you do for yourself this evening or tomorrow? And I would like you to write that down. It can be even something like, how would you really encourage yourself if you were to sit next to you, ready to sit this 11+ exam? What would you say to yourself? It could be something like, hey, you know what? I believe in you. You got this. I support you. Or you can talk about it to yourself, like, hey, I got this. No matter what happens, this exam will not define who I am. I can make that choice. I'm okay. I've worked for this. I'm doing quite fine. And give yourself a hug. Now, my last strategy, and I'm really going to invite all of you to do this and to use this. Be your own superhero. So if you were to think of your superpower, what would that be? Something might come up spontaneously, or you might have to think about this a little bit longer. It could be, my superpower is courage, or my superpower is kindness, or my superpower is, I'm a great friend, or my superpower is, I'm really good at science, or my superpower is, I can be very patient. Whatever it is, it can be powerful, or it can be just something that feels little. Once it's your superpower, it is big. So what is your superpower? And write that in this flag. And then I want you to put on your superhero cape. Do it with me. Put on your superhero cape. And this is important for you as parents too. You've done so much to get your wards this far. And teachers and principals, you've worked so much for this. So put on your superhero cape. What color is your superhero cape? Does it have sparkles? Does it blow in the wind? I want you to imagine it and wear it with pride. Because when we ask ourselves, what sort of person do I want to be as I go through any time of pressure? How do I want to treat myself and others? I want you to take that superpower and sprinkle it all over your day. Let it guide you and let it motivate you, because nobody can take that away from you. So I have a few strategies that I prepared. Just in the sense of time, I would love to hear back from you or answer any questions. But if you can take a screenshot at this point, or if you have the time to get back to the recording, have a look at these. It is just these last few strategies over the weekend to prepare for this big event. What to eat, what not to eat, relax, do something fun. Whatever you've learned by now, it's in you. There is nothing now that you can still cram in the last 2 days. Limit your screen time, do some exercises, talk to someone that you enjoy talking to. You can think of some of the stress tools that are available. I always am full of lovely, fun stress tools that I can squeeze or play with, or they can just even symbolize something. Like, this is my lion, and when I need courage, I just look at my little lion on my desk. So if you think that you're grown up and that you're past the toys, think again. They're very helpful. So this is also something to get back to. We can't go into it now, but either just a simple hand massage or some of these finger gestures and pressure points can actually help you de-stress. So it's really a great resource to get back to. I've also created a list of red flags. We're not going to go through them now, but if you worry about yourself or someone else being unable to cope with stress or anxiety, have a look. These are some of the red flags, and do consider reaching out to someone for help. This can be a friend, this can be a teacher, this can be a colleague, this can be a parent, this can be a health professional, a mental health professional, a clergy member, anyone that you think could be helping. So all the best to you, good luck, and I know you got this. And thank you so much for listening. So I have to get back to Zoom. Here we are. So how do we go about the question and answer? Oh, I have to unshare. I unshared already. Do we want to take questions from this Zoom space? Do we want to?
Noemi, yes. We are going to be taking. Yes, we're going to be taking questions from both Zoom and YouTube, if we do have them. So I'm going to ask those of you here in the Zoom link, if you have any questions, you can unmute your mic and speak and ask your questions, or if you prefer, you can type it into the chat. We have a few minutes for questions. So if there are any questions,
yes,
you can ask them now.
Thank you. My name is Jacqueline Griffith.
Good evening, Jacqueline.
Thank you. What about if the child seems like carefree, not anxious, not stressed, just, Hello?
You finish your question?
Yes, I'm just wondering if a child seems, but not that you want that child to be anxious, but the child is just, they do their work. Yes, the child is working well, but the child just seems normal. It doesn't seem as though the exam is a big deal. It's just another examination. What do you think about that?
Noemi?
Yes, that's a great question. Thank you, Ms. Griffith. So what's interesting is that we all respond to big events differently. You may remember at the beginning of the presentation, we've talked about those many emotions and thoughts and feelings and even physical reactions, but they might not be real, like the case for everyone. And perhaps for you as a caregiver or parent or guardian, your own stressor might be at a higher level. Your own stress factor might be at a higher level than the child's. And that's okay. So once you can also be sure that you find what works for you to calm yourself. As you said, what I heard you say is that the child's done their work, that they feel prepared. So feeling anxious and stressed about an exam is not necessarily a must for it to go well. Sometimes a child may feel relaxed and confident all the way up to 10 minutes before the exam starts. And then they start to feel nervous or stressed when they are actually in the moment. So yes, we want a certain sense of arousal. So I do understand that you're concerned. Well, what if, is this child even really realizing how important this is? I'm sure they are. I think the culture around us is really giving enough of these cues and messages, how big and important this is. So we are happy to hear that for some children, they feel confident enough to say, I got this, and to be able to enjoy their days beforehand. And it might be that their arousal level to get them really prepared happens just before the exam. So I just wish your child, I don't know if it's a female or a male, all the best for it, and just encourage them.
Thank you so much. It's a boy.
It's a boy. All right. Good luck to him.
Thank you for that response. Are there any further questions?
Yes, please.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Okay, I tend to have this habit, like, if I don't want a certain mark, I tend to get a little bit upset or depressed. Like, for example, if I can get 90s in these practice tests, and then I get below 80 something, I tend to get a little bit depressed, and I tend to have this habit, if I don't want a certain mark, I tend to get a little bit upset.
Thank you. Yes, Malika, thank you. You can mute yourself again, then that will give me the chance to respond. So thank you for your question. I'm not sure if Malika is your name or someone else's name in your family. So I hope I got it right.
It's my name.
Okay, great. So having expectations is part and parcel of who we are. It is important, though, to consider not to have the expectations be too high and too hard on ourselves, because we are humans. So some days I might do better, some days I might do less. That happens to the best among us. Even to the strongest athletes, they might run faster one day and slower another day. It's just part and parcel of who we are, and that's okay. The more that we raise our expectations, the smaller that window becomes where we can actually satisfy ourselves. Does that make sense? So it is important. I think I really want to commend you, first of all, to share this with us. And I want to commend you for noticing it, because that's the first step. The fact that you notice that this is something that you do and that then you feel really, really down and depressed and upset and disappointed. That's the first step to be able to make a new choice and to do something about it. Okay, so where it is important to use some of these strategies, or also to speak to someone who can help. If it is not a family member or a teacher, even find out if you can reach out to some of they got even helplines that you can call, or your guidance counselor, but to really speak about these occurrences, so that you don't find it's getting harder and harder, because it is just part of who we are. We have expectations. Sometimes we meet them and sometimes not. And what matters is not that we fall down. What matters is that we just dust off and get back up. No, it's the other way around. get back up first and dust off and just try again. So this one exam on Tuesday is not going to define your entire life, okay? So if you happen to be really strong one day and you're going to do a little less, it's okay. You know, you will do the best you can. Just keep getting back up and say, oh, I tripped up. Let me just try again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that response. I think we have time for a few more questions.
Can you see the questions on the YouTube, from the YouTube participants? Because I'm not sure if we would see them here.
We have someone tracking that. Yeah. Any more questions or comments from our Zoom audience? No? At least one more question. Well, if there are no further questions, I want to take this time to thank all of you for taking the time to be with us this evening for this session on managing stress. I think it is most useful. A lot of the information that has been shared is information that all of us, whether child or adult, can benefit from, not only with respect to preparing for an exam, but with respect to any aspect of our lives where we feel stressed. And we all know that there's some stress that is good and there's some stress that is bad, because the good stress can actually motivate us to do well and to excel. So we want to thank Noemi. I hope I have been pronouncing your name right all evening. I'm not sure, but I want to thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. Very thoughtful, very suited for the occasion. And as I said, not just suited for this particular juncture in these children's lives and in these parents' lives, but certainly information that they can take beyond the exam. Because as you rightfully said, the exam does not define who we are. The chief also echoed those sentiments. We are who we are because of our worth and our value. And we will take what we have to whichever school we go to, and we will excel. You students, you will excel. So thank you so much. I want to thank our Chief Education Officer for her very kind, warm, and encouraging remarks as well at the beginning of our session. I want to thank all of those who worked behind the scenes to ensure that this session happened today. Mr. Carter, the Senior Education Officer from Curriculum, and any other individuals in the Ministry of Education who worked to ensure that it happened. The technical team from the Media Resource Department. I want to thank the parents, the principals, and you students for being a part of our audience this evening. We really wish you well next week, Tuesday. We encourage you to just do your best, and whatever the outcome, you will be fine. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. Have a great evening, everyone. Good evening. Bye.
Good evening. Thank you.